We, in this session, are going to talk about AI agents for customer engagement. Now, whilst a lot of us are heavily focused on the use of AI for generating content in all its various forms, one of the hidden, and I guess you could call it secret pieces of value from AI right now is the creation of agents that are going to help you to become more efficient, more effective, more focused on customers, and create a better ROI in every part of marketing that you are involved in. So this is a really, really huge opportunity right now for marketers. So that's what we're going to focus in on in this session. So what is an AI agent? I mean, it sounds highfalutin and quite exciting, and indeed it actually is. I mean, these are software programs that use artificial intelligence to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. So they are kind of in some ways replacing parts of day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month activity that humans will do. And this includes natural language processing, learning from the data that is being processed, and also, really importantly, making decisions. Now, this is not about creating an AI agent that is going to come for your job. Okay, but it is redefining the role that marketing and pretty much every other discipline in business actually has. So it's a really exciting, really interesting opportunity. And it is something that we need to embrace within marketing because the value that comes through when we use an AI agent for taking away the kind of repetitive, lower value activities that we typically get caught up in on a regular basis. If we can replace those things with an AI agent, they'll do it far more effectively, far more efficiently, far quicker than we could. And what it'll do is it will free us up to focus on and prioritize the higher value things in our day-to-day living. So there is a big opportunity here for increasing the return on investment of us as marketers. And when we come to talk about, as we will in a moment, customer engagement, well, the opportunities really are pretty much endless. Now, in this session, I'm going to be focusing in on two different platforms because for me right now, these are two very good examples of organizations who are very, very focused in the marketing and customer engagement space. So we're going to look at smithos.com and we're going to look at make.com. Now, they are similar, but they're subtly different. So Smithos is an AI-driven platform for managing customer interactions and has a range of advanced personalization features. So if personalization's on your radar right now, if you are looking to enhance your customer relationships, then Smithos could be a very interesting platform to explore. If, however, you are looking to automate, as I've mentioned a little bit earlier here, some of the activities that you do, then if you know some of the workflows, the processes, and the activities that you are typically repeating on a regular basis, then to optimize those processes, something like Make will be a really, really effective tool potentially for you. And you can integrate both of these into the workflows and processes that you have to get best value. And I'll explain how you'll be able to do that in just a while. Now, both of these organizations obviously right now are evolving. They're emerging from this AI agent space, and they're very much specializing in this. So they're not generalist organizations. They're very, very much focusing in this space. And they are already, through their organization and through the work that they're doing with some of their early clients, they're already seeing some very significant results. For example, Smithos, their virtual assistant, which they've been working on for a retail company, has reduced response times by 50% at the same time as increasing customer satisfaction by 30%. Now, that is a really interesting balance because you would kind of expect really that if you just become really, really fast, you might then be compromising something else. But actually, you can get a win-win through the process of creating an agent. So we'll go into how that works and why this needs to be a significant focus for you a little bit later. Now, when we look into the process, it is actually, as Smith OS will define, remarkably easy, although it isn't. It's actually quite complicated, and it is involving a little bit of science, a lot of planning, and something that I'll talk about in a moment, which is called process mapping. But Smith OS say fundamentally the creation of an AI agent is not that difficult. You need, in principle, to decide, well, what kind of agents do you need? And these are going to be activity pockets, if you like, around your organization, around your team, around your activities and your processes that will take care of themselves. So it might be that you need something to help you with your customer relationship management. So you might be looking for a CRM manager in an AI agent. You might be looking for a content creator. You might be looking for part of a process of processing a customer. So it could be a sales inquiry through to creating a lead record, through to referring it to somebody who is going to then give the call back to the customer or the prospect. So these are going to be parts of the activity that you and probably colleagues are doing. So that's the first thing, is to think about what are our processes? What are the kind of things that we're doing? And also, interestingly, with Smith OS, they're very, very consciously driving us towards what are you actually currently using? So if you already have apps, if you already have processes and systems, you have some tools that are in your processes, then let's kind of get those onto the table as well, because something like Smith OS will allow you to integrate your activities and your processes with those tools. So what we're not doing here is looking to create a replacement for what you do, but much more something that is complementary. So that's important. So having decided the kind of the roles that you want your agents to play, and it probably is multiple roles, you're probably going to be looking at multiple agents. And again, that'll get interesting in a moment. And then you'll understand the tools and the platforms that you're currently using, the softwares you're using. And then it's all about onboarding your agents with visual workflows. Now, that's a really key concept here as we start to think about building and creating an AI agent. Onboarding your agent that you're going to give a very tight, very precise job description to, and then onboarding them with a visual workflow. In other words, you're going to introduce your agent to the role that they're going to play, but exactly where in your processes they are going to fit. So this is almost like you're taking on a new member of staff to perform a very, very, very forensically focused, absolutely laser focused role. And you're going to show them exactly where in the overall process. So to give them a context, you're going to show them where they fit. And then they can begin work, and you'll prompt them, you'll guide them, you'll check their work, and then you're going to let them loose in the process to perform on a regular repeat basis. And this is where your efficiencies are going to come from. And most of the time, what we're going to be focusing on here is customer engagement. So what actually is customer engagement? And then we're going to look at kind of drawing the two things together. So we're going to say we want to use maybe an agent to enhance our customer engagement, to get better scores, if you like. Now, customer engagement refers to all of the interactions, all of the touch points between you and your customer. Okay, through all the different channels that you have. Now, most of the time, for many of us, it's going to be digital channels. So a lot of the time it's through email, it's through the website, it's through socials, it's probably through other kind of digital mechanisms, but it will also be through face-to-face, through a telephone call, through meeting at a conference or an event, maybe through cold calling even, and some organizations still do that. So all of those touch points are part of this customer interaction or this customer engagement. Now, a lot of the time we might call that the customer journey. And of course, by being a journey, those click by click by click, pinpoint accurate points of engagement, well, there's another workflow or another process. So, of course, what we're looking to do here is to dovetail in our AI agents at certain points in these customer engagement processes. And the whole point of doing this is to help facilitate a deeper, more intimate, more relevant relationship between you and your customer. So there are three key components here when we think about customer engagement. And often we're going to need to be briefing our AI agent as much as we would a normal member of staff in these things, because it's going to be really important that our AI agents understand both the role, but also the little nuances behind how they're going to perform their role. So we're going to be briefing them. We're going to be doing some prompt engineering, as it's called, to actually guide them and give them their job description. So the key components of customer engagement are establishing and fostering an emotional connection. Very, very important, an emotional connection. So the customer needs to understand within this process, within this workflow, they need to feel good. They need to feel it's relevant to them, and they just need to be feeling like they're getting some value from it as we build the faith and trust within this relationship in their minds. We also have a component here called the interaction frequency. In other words, we don't want to be bombarding our customer in this engagement with too much information. So as we start to think through the building and the creation and the curation of our AI agent, we need to give them a very clear role here that is very specific and precise in terms of how much interaction they, as part of this process, are going to be having with the customer. Because with efficiency, and let's face it, AI gives us huge amounts of efficiency, there could be a temptation to just then overload and say, well, hey, I can do this stuff now in 4 or 5 seconds that used to take me an hour. So let's kind of 10x it or 100x it. So what we're going to do is we're going to just scale these things up and just really supercharge them. And of course, then from the customer's perspective, it becomes overwhelming. So we have to think about the interaction frequency. And also, as part of the engagement, and one of the very cool things you can do with an AI agent is start to think about an AI agent potentially that can glean customer feedback. So they can listen, they can watch, they can sense and monitor the behaviors, the interactions, and the sentiment with which our customers are interacting with us or not. And they can then gather that data and do something with it, and far more effectively than we can. They can do what we call multivariate analysis, so they can see the combinations between different pots of data, different kind of attributes of things that they're monitoring and watching and learning from, which is far more effective than we as human beings can do, because we can probably monitor A versus B. We can see before and after, and that's probably quite clear to us. But the intrinsic detail behind big amounts of data capture means that we certainly get swamped very quickly. So the AI agent is going to be very powerful in terms of interpreting customer feedback and then doing something with it and adding huge amounts of value to the evaluation of what we see in this relationship with our customers. So, for example, we can use AI chatbots on something like Make to engage customers through multiple platforms, which should, in theory, lead to higher retention rates, because we can give them in real time, 24/7, with no sleep. Of course, our AI agents don't need to sleep. They don't need to rest. And they, because they're well programmed, won't be making the kind of mistakes or tiring or getting fatigued like a human being would. So they can be very, very helpful to retain the customer on their journey through our products and services and our brand. So what we're looking at here is automating some of our work. So what we need to be doing is thinking about if we were able to drag and drop elements of our process into play here and actually create a workflow that, in theory, if we were just to press the on button and switch on our AI agent who we're programming to do some step-by-step activities, then we can literally sit back and do some higher value work. So this automation is key in terms of your thinking when it comes to building the AI agent. And of course, what this is going to do very, very quickly is to open up the opportunity. And I've already used the phrase return on investment, ROI. This is opening up the opportunity very, very quickly, almost as soon as you press go for your AI agent to then sort of set to work and start to do this workflow that you've programmed into it. Then you are going to be able to measure, we hope, if you've got this right, increases and improvements in customer satisfaction. So this could be your customer satisfaction score, your CSAT. It could be your customer effort score, or for many of us, it's our net promoter score, that real kind of value, if you like, that our customer is perceiving from us, measured over time so we can see some trends. Now, normally what we would do is we would be capturing a lot of our customer satisfaction score through direct interactions. We'd actually be asking the customer, maybe after a particular interaction or product purchase or something like that. We might send them some feedback forms and actually ask them to review us. We might do a bit of a heavyweight survey or something a little bit lighter at various points in their customer journey. Now, of course, by this point, I'm sure you're probably thinking, well, is there a role there for an AI agent to do it? Because that when I have to do it myself, that takes so much time. And of course, the answer fundamentally is yes, of course. We can get AI agents to fill in these spaces, actually be constantly watching and getting the sentiment, collecting the data, doing those surveys on an automated basis, freeing us up to look at the results, to analyze and evaluate those results with or without the help of an AI agent in that part of the process too. So it becomes really, really interesting. And particularly because, of course, with an AI agent who never sleeps, you're able to do real-time data collection 24/7, and also real-time feedback collection post interactions, which, as Smith OS have found when they've implemented this, is they've seen improved customer satisfaction by up to 25% by implementing these kinds of approaches. So it's hugely significant and really exciting if you're being tasked with increasing customer satisfaction and the quality of the marketing and sales relationships that you have. So what we're beginning to do here then is to, as Smith OS would put it, unlock a world of possibilities, really, by creating agents, designing these agents to really streamline elements of our process and as effortlessly as we can infill those little pain points that we might have in our workflows with an agent who is not going to complain, who can be well programmed, who can be very, very precise and specific in their role and deliver consistently 24/7 on an automated basis. So if we can plan this right, if we can figure out these points in the journey where an automated element of the process would be very, very helpful both to us and to the customer, then it's going to free both of us up probably to be able to have and spend time going into those deeper conversations with the customer, not having to worry about, oh, I've got some admin to do, or oh, I've got to do that processing, and I haven't really got time to contact the customer. Well, this is going to free up time to have those much, much more significant and higher value interactions with them. So for me, this is a really exciting opportunity, which is almost too good to miss, really. Now, we're seeing a lot of this already coming through, particularly at the front end, for example, of websites, where we're seeing a lot now of virtual assistants or chatbots, as they're called. And the trend at the moment, and there is a real increasing adoption of AI in this space, and it is for a variety of reasons. It is because of the 24/7 availability that I've been talking about. It's because you will be able to ensure, almost guarantee, consistent responses because your chatbot or virtual assistant or your AI agent, as we're calling them here, will only be able to give consistent responses because they're trained with a set amount of data. So they're not going to give that sort of humanness, if you like, but that actually has a positive in some interactions. Some interactions, yes, you want it to be a human for a variety of interrelationship and human to human reasons, but where it doesn't need to be that, a chatbot and a virtual assistant can allow for the third real value here, which is scalability. because you're not going to be restricted by the number of people you have on your help desk or on your customer service support. You will be able to scale very, very efficiently and very, very effectively. So again, really, really exciting. And of course, as we're seeing, this will allow us to be consistent across time zones, opening up new territories, new geographies that otherwise we wouldn't be able to service because of the return on investment. It would just be too expensive. Whereas here, if you switch them on, they're running, they're effective, and there is almost no limit and no barrier to it. So we can, if we choose to, plot out the process for a chatbot or virtual assistant. Now, Make is a very, very good way of actually testing this out. Again, like Smith OS, where you can integrate it in and around the existing softwares and applications that you already have. And that, for me, is now this perfect storm, this game-changing opportunity. It's almost like we've had to wait for many, many years for this to kind of almost mature into being an opportunity that is actually available to us. It's almost been a dream or a nice to have or a wish list on the marketer's playbook, but it is now available here. And if you can begin to think about how would I want to interact if I was an AI agent? What kind of data and information would I need to be able to access? What pots of intelligence and pre-planned and pre-formed data is going to inform my decision making, so that when a customer asks me a question in the prompt box, I've actually got the data I can actually read from and learn from. And then as I interact with that customer, it's not a one-time activity. I'm now going to learn from the little nuances in the way that customer interacts with me. And so the next time as an AI agent, I'm going to come back even stronger, but I'm still operating and working from my job description, from the boundaries and the limitations that have been set by my marketing manager, but also from the data set that I'm drawing from. So if we can start as marketers to think about all these elements and start to plot them out, literally step by step, then we start to become very much more streamlined, if you like, in our customer service and our customer response. So these faster response times, always knowing we're working to the right data. And of course, it means that there's a reduced workload for human agents. So there's a lower operational cost through the automation. But what it allows us to do is to deploy our customer service human agents and our marketers and our salespeople in a much higher value relationship building role. So rather than just processing, for example, those frequently asked questions, which can take up a huge amount of time on help desks, where a customer can basically self-serve alongside an AI agent or a chatbot or a virtual assistant without actually having to bother a much more expensive human agent, leaving that human agent free to do the higher value stuff. So streamlining in this way is going to make us all so much more effective and also much more efficient. Now, a lot of people will be saying at this point, well, okay, no, that's absolutely fine. But one of the big challenges that we have is we need to still be able to personalize. But of course, an AI algorithm that learns from customer behavior and preferences, and each time it has an interaction, it gets tighter and tighter, more and more precise, more and more personalized, because it's constantly learning. There is a cumulative effect in time. So it only gets better from that very first interaction. So using customer data, and if you have a CRM system, this is where you are going to be rewarded, because the better your CRM, your customer relationship management system, the more religiously you've been putting data and information into that system, the better your AI agents are going to be from the get-go. Because lazy organizations who have just almost paid lip service to it but not really taken it seriously in the past are now going to suffer. The organizations who have kept strong, tight customer records about every interaction, they've plotted out their customer journeys, they know those interactions intimately, and they have the data to show and demonstrate it. Well, those AI agents are going to thank you from the word go, because they will be able to learn from that data from right now. So AI agents providing personalized product recommendations based on browsing history have increased sales by 20%, according to some of Make.com's clients. So this is exciting stuff. This stuff really, really works. The more data you have captured, the more data you decide to capture from this point onwards, your AI agents are going to be more and more powerful. So this is very much big data, but big data that is actually driving the business, not just sat there for a rainy day. This is where we're actually now going to be able to optimize this stuff. Again, hugely, hugely exciting. Now, you may think, okay, well, this is all very well, but these workflows that you talk about, these processes, this customer journey, it all starting to sound really quite complicated. So, where do we start? Well, Make would say start with a template. Now, they have thousands already of workflow automation templates that you can customize to match your ideal workflows. So, the trick is to begin starting to work out and figure out, well, what are our processes? What is our customer journey? And then once you can highlight and maybe almost sort of ring fence a little part of that journey or that workflow, you can then start to think, well, okay, I wonder if somebody's gone before me. I've got a few examples to show you in just a moment, because the answer almost certainly is yes. Most marketers are not reinventing the wheel with everything they do. Often, everything that we've done here, probably today or this week, has been done by somebody in the past as well. And often now, because this is a very, very popular way of approaching marketing automation and customer engagement and business development, a lot of marketers are already maybe a step or two ahead of you. So these templates are likely to exist. And that gives you then a real head start on where you can take this. So let's get really practical just for a moment. I'm going to talk about the process and then I'm going to talk about the technology. So let's begin with process mapping. So a practical guide to process mapping, first of all, is to identify your customer service processes and every single step. So this is mapping your process, determining your automation potential by mapping your workflows. So this would be, for example, sitting down with some sticky notes and a flip chart or some online process mapping software or a whiteboard, whatever your preference is, and start to plot out literally step by step, click by click, everything that you do for one little section of your customer service or one little section of a marketing process. You decide whatever feels most comfortable, whichever thing you know best or that you know very well. But get very, very forensic, get really, really detailed, because that's going to be where you're going to score here. So mapping the process out. You can use platforms like Make.com for visual process mapping. I mean, they themselves give you, as do in part SmithOS, but they give you an opportunity here to really think through those processes before you decide how you're going to build an agent. Because until you know your processes, you're not really in a position to say, well, this agent or that agent, I'm not really sure which one. So it would be very hard to actually decide on a role or a job description for an AI agent without knowing your processes and without understanding what you're doing right now and actually which bits you'd like to automate, because you don't really add it as a human being a huge amount of value in doing those things. And keep it very, very simple when you start out. Also, as you're doing this, think about and combine your workflows with the things or the tools that you're already using. So if you're using things like Google Drive, Microsoft Office, if you're using HubSpot, for example, many, many other sort of tools obviously are available, as well as OpenAI, ChatGPT, etc., etc. Think of all of within those processes that you're mapping, think of all of the tools that you're using as well. So it's not just the process itself, it's also the tools within that process. Because what you're going to need to do, and we'll get onto that in the next step, is you're going to need to then start to replace your physical activity with an AI agent's step-by-step activities within that process, if you see what I mean. So the better you know your process, the more seamless and the smoother this activity is going to be. So let's take for an example, if you wanted to, for example, analyze a support ticket that has come through from your system, from your process or your customer service, and then potentially then automatically assign it to the correct customer support specialist. Right, so there's a really specific part of a process. So a customer comes in, they fill out the form, it automatically then comes into your system. And rather than somebody manually pick that ticket up and think, oh, yes, I'm going to send that to Bob, or oh, yes, I'm going to send that to Mary, that's not what you're needing to do. The system, your AI agent will, in that process, automatically do that assignment. So that's the kind of thing you're looking for here. So if you've got a step in the process that involves a human being, okay, you note that down. If you've got a step in the process that involves a particular tool, yeah, you note that down too. Here's an example. So this was the very, very first one. It's a very simple example, but this was the very, very first process map for an AI agent that I created myself. So just to give you a little context here. So for a particular client, I get emails that come through automatically from the client's website when a person makes an inquiry because they're interested in the product. So the website itself completes the form, or they complete the form on the website. It gets assigned to a small number, just 3 people, of which I'm one. But it's my responsibility as part of that interaction to assign that person, so the name, first name, surname, and the email address into MailChimp. So the email comes in, I see it in my inbox. I think, oh, there's another one. That's good news. I then copy and paste. Well, I have to log into MailChimp, which is the email database we use then to remarket back to the inquirers and existing customers, this particular client. But I've got to log into MailChimp, and it's not something I have open all the time. So I need to spend a little bit of time logging there. Then I've got to find the correct database. Then I've got to find, based on the inquiry, I've got to find the right segment of the audience in that database in MailChimp. And then I've got to say, create new subscriber. I've got to then copy and paste in the first name, the surname, and the email address. And then I press the 2 little buttons that say, yep, this person's opted in. Yep, this person's interested. If they're already in the database, please replace them with this new data, this new information, and then press send. And then, of course, then it updates MailChimp. But then I go back to my email, and then I file away that email safely. Now that takes me probably about 8 or 9 minutes, maybe 10 minutes some days, especially if I get a little bit of a distraction, for example. Another email might pop in and I just check that in the middle of that process. This process here takes 4 seconds using Make. Okay, so what I've done is I've automated that entire process. Oh, but by the way, I've also added in another little step, which is that I get a little push notification out onto my Apple iPhone just every time that happens automatically in the background. And I do nothing. So the email comes in, it's automatically picked up in this process flow. So the process is actually watching in real time. It's watching my inbox. So I give it permissions to watch my inbox. It's watching out for a particular address because, of course, the website of my client sends it from a particular address. So it's watching out for that address. And every time it sees an email, it then goes through an automated version of that MailChimp process that I just described without my intervention at all. I don't add any value. It's not a very highly valuable use of my time. It'd be much better if I was spending time planning and strategizing with the client rather than processing an email that comes in. So the fact I get a nice confident feeling when I get a little ping on my iPhone that says, yep, there's another person who's just subscribed. And I know confidently then that this process is working. The process actually takes 4 seconds from start to finish because when I did the very first test, I timed it and it was 4 seconds from me sending the test email to me getting the little ping on my phone. So it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. And I don't see myself as part of that process anymore. It's all automated. I'm not even involved in it, but I get that confirmation. So if, for example, somebody said, oh, well, I haven't received any emails from you, and then I could then look back and think, oh, well, I didn't get the ping. So yeah, that'll be why. So then I can go and do a little bit of troubleshooting. But so far, so good. Not a single error has been occurring there, which again gives me that confidence that the AI agent, beautifully programmed, is not going to make any errors on this part of what is, for me, quite an important little mini process. So that's a very, very simple one, but there are much more because that's quite linear. There's no decision making going on there. But can you imagine actually process mapping something again for customer engagement when, for example, if you get a Google review, now, imagine if you are actively, as part of a campaign, collecting Google reviews. Maybe they're quite important. Well, they're important to all of us. But could you imagine if you had an AI agent that was watching out for every time you got a new Google review? And then, depending on that review, there was a little router in the process that said, okay, well, if you're 4 stars or greater, we're going to send actually a reply to that review, and we're going to actually then create a little update in our database that says, hey, this is a very happy customer. We're going to give them a particular response back. And then the router then also says, well, if the review is less than 4 stars, then they're going to get a different set of sort of then follow-up responses or prompts, depending obviously on how you set each of these little parts of the process. But the key here is the fact this is non-linear. The key here is that there is decision making going on, and you can make this as simple or as complex as you like. And again, this is another process that Make have as a template. So this is quite an interesting one that you can start to build upon. And it literally is just click and drop. It really is. You can drag into place if as part of that process you wanted to then extend it onwards, so that anybody who's given a 4-star review, you then send them maybe an email or a message that says, would you like to join our kind of VIP community, and you'll get this particular offer. Whereas if somebody gives a much lower review, maybe then that refers off to a customer service agent, a human in this particular case, or maybe not, and maybe it's an AI agent, and then to perform a follow-up to find out why the review was lower than you might have hoped. So there's a whole range of different follow-on things. So you can make these processes quite long, but my recommendation is to keep them really short and sweet so that you can get used to actually how they work and how you can use your process mapping to build them step by step. And the key thing, which again builds upon the one that I gave you with the MailChimp example there, is that you can be doing this very much in real time with external platforms. So here's an example of saving new followers from Twitter or X, formerly Twitter, to a data store. And you can decide what your data store is. It can be a Google Drive, it can be your customer relationship management system, wherever it is. And again, to be able to serve these new followers that this particular AI agent is monitoring. So it's constantly watching your X or formerly Twitter account, and anybody who follows then, again, it goes into that database that says, oh, you've got a new follower. So it's Neil. Neil's just followed you. So, okay, Neil's information goes into the data store. And again, different things can then follow on from that. So can you imagine if, as part of your customer journey, as soon as a prospect becomes a customer, that is a great point in their journey where they're very happy to follow. They're very happy to give you connections and requests and sort of join your database, maybe part of a community, maybe advocate you. They're going to do a review for you. And as those really key points in the customer journey happen, think about what you would like to do automatically to reward or to guide or to inform or educate the customer on the next step of their journey, because you can process map that. And of course, if you're providing 24/7 product sales, maybe through an e-commerce website, you don't want to be sat there in the middle of the night waiting for the next sale. but of course, a customer may well be doing that. And particularly if you're serving an international market, wouldn't it be great if in real time your AI agents just took care of business whilst you weren't available? So think about all these different types of processes, the decision-making ones, the simple ones, and then maybe the more extended ones, because this is what AI agents for customer engagement can lead on to. And as you begin to think about your technology choices going forward, I mean, I've given the examples of Smith OS and Make. Smith OS, really comprehensive AI-driven solutions, and Make very specifically for workflow automation. This is going to make your workflows and your processes much more scalable, easy to integrate with new technologies as they come through. You need to be thinking, obviously, for maybe more customization options, the level of vendor support if you want to go deep into this. And of course, there are others available to be able to serve your choices here. And something I would certainly be recommending as we finish off this session in terms of building AI agents for customer engagement is that, to me, it's really, really important that you stay on top of this. This is an emerging scene. This is an emerging opportunity. So regularly review and update your AI models and your agents, gather customer feedback, monitor your performance metrics, all the things that you would do if you had unlimited time and bandwidth. Now you've got AI agents to take care of business there. You can then be spending time watching emerging technologies and trends. Really important that you stay in tune with all of this. So the analytics platforms do A/B testing, make sure you're conducting customer surveys. The more you can do in this kind of mindset of continuous improvement with your AI agents, the better, the more informed they're going to be, the more optimized your processes and your workflows. And it will get to a point where probably your AI agents, should you choose to create them for this particular purpose, will start to recommend improvements you can make to the workflows and the processes themselves. So not only the processes are going to be taken care of by, in part, the AI agents, but they will begin to make recommendations for improving themselves, as well as the processes that you have them working for on your behalf. So it's really exciting times. And my recommendation is to begin with the process mapping. AI agents are not here to get your job, but they are here to help your job become optimized and to improve the ROI of all of the marketing and customer engagement that you do.